I can remember for myself, Shum, even when I started, I was a victim to that where I made money in my business. There was less expenses early on. So I think it's easy to fall into that when you don't have a lot of expenses. But then what happens? Revenue grows, the business grows, you start investing into it in different ways. And then all of a sudden you never change the way you manage things. And now it's just this one big discombobulated mess of personal mixed with business. So over the years, obviously, have gotten into a better place with that. But the mistake I see with my clients when they come to me, most of them don't even have a bookkeeper. They're keeping their own books. And when you're keeping your own books, it's very hard to get clear on what your actual operating expenses are. Not because you don't necessarily see what's there and what's going on, but when you're the bookkeeper for your own business, it can be very easy to tell yourself a story that isn't quite accurate and to fabricate what looks like personal expenses, what looks like business expenses. And even if it is separated, it doesn't quite actually operate as separated.
Welcome everyone to the Sean. This is actually my Growing Money with Sean Trace podcast, and I've got a really awesome guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Mando Sallavanti. I'm a certified financial planner. I specialize in helping high earning sales executives and entrepreneurs. And I've got a team of 3 people, including myself. I'm one of the 3. And I'm from Northeast Pennsylvania.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's interesting because like everyone is talking about, right now you go on LinkedIn, you go on Instagram, and everyone's talking about being an entrepreneur. Everyone's like, hey, get out there, crush it, have your own business. Even if it's a side hustle, you're still an entrepreneur, But there's a lot of things that you don't realize that you have to do. And one of my recent guests had a really interesting thing that he said a lot of entrepreneurs do. And it was a really interesting thing. He's like, one of the biggest challenges that he's seen is that a lot of entrepreneurs think that the money from the business is their money. And it's not, they don't realize, hang on, once you create a business, like you have to have this separation between your finances. And he's like, he sees so many people that start siphoning off the money from the business into their own personal life. What are some of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make with their money once they start making real income, man?
I can remember for myself, Shum, even when I started, I was a victim to that where I made money in my business. There was less expenses early on. So I think it's easy to fall into that when you don't have a lot of expenses. But then what happens? Revenue grows, the business grows, you start investing into it in different ways. And then all of a sudden you never change the way you manage things. And now it's just this one big discombobulated mess of personal mixed with business. So over the years, obviously have gotten into a better place with that. But the mistake I see with my clients when they come to me, most of them don't even have a bookkeeper. They're keeping their own books. And when you're keeping your own books, it's very hard to get clear on what your actual operating expenses are. Not because you don't necessarily see what's there and what's going on, but when you're the bookkeeper for your own business, it can be very easy to tell yourself a story that isn't quite accurate and to fabricate what looks like personal expenses, what looks like business expenses. And even if it is separated, it doesn't quite actually operate as separated. So getting that bookkeeper in place is really key to know what your operating expenses are, because once you know that, I'm advising business owners to usually keep 1 to 2 to 3 months of your operating expenses after they're paid in the business accounts every single month at a minimum. And then whatever you're going to flow through after that to your personal side, if you're a solopreneur or you don't really have a lot of employees, great. That's a simple way to do it. Otherwise, if you have a larger operation where I've got 10, 15, 20 employees, whatever that number may be, that's where you have to work with, whether it's a financial planner, accountant, to understand what should I be actually paying myself out? What can I take distribution wise if it's on a monthly or a quarterly basis? Just getting clear on those things and use the professionals around you, because you have enough hats you have to wear as the business owner.
Right. That's the thing too. I think that a lot of people figure out, it's like, I once was able to change my my starter in my car, and I'm very proud that I pulled that off. And I realized one thing when I was doing that: I don't ever want to have to do my own like automotive work, man. That's not my forte. I am not good at that. Let me talk on a podcast. Oh, great, I can do that for days. But And it's important to, like, and I started to realize, when I need work done on my car, I go to a mechanic that I trust. When my teeth are having problems, I don't sit there and go, you know what, this is the time to pull up a YouTube video and try to figure out how to do dental work on myself. No, you don't do that. You go to a dentist. And the same thing for everything. And it's like, that leads to my next question. Like, why is having a team for your finances, whether it be a CPA, lawyer, advisors, better than going solo? Why is it so much better?
I found I found this to be true in my own life first and foremost as I've grown my business and started to be more successful. Because as a financial planner, it can be easy for me to say, I know all these areas of finance. I know all these areas of whatever part of, business management. I don't need to hire anybody. And then I hired a truly good CPA to help me with my stuff. And it's just been transformational because, okay, I can offload this. I have an attorney that helps me with some things. I can offload that. Then you talk about people like administrative assistants, which I think it's crazy to me. So many entrepreneurs overlook the power of having a good administrative assistant. That will change your life. It has for me, and it will for any entrepreneur that's busy and time constrained. Which, let's be real, we all are.
Right.
So when you can offload what you are 70% effective at or 80% effective at to someone who will operate at full capacity, you're getting that much more productivity out of a certain area. And you're also saving yourself time that can be redirected into what you're best at.
I love that. The this is so true. It's like, imagine you're on a football game, right? You're playing a game of football, and you can't play quarterback and running back and linebacker and the wide receiver at the same time. You just can't do it, man. You need to have people that are skilled at different things. And I think that's one of the things that I had to learn with my own business is there are things that I'm very good at and things that I am in no way, shape, or form good at. And I think when you can look at that and understand that, like, I love, talking about a personal assistant because, executive assistant, game changer. It's absolute game changer that if you can figure out things. What was it? Did you ever see the Eisenhower? I think it's the Eisenhower matrix, and it goes, things that are important, and then there's a whole area of things that you need to delegate, things that are important, but they're not urgent, and you don't need to have your energy and time into them. And I think that more people need to start looking at that. Because I love Timothy Ferriss, and he's got the book, the 4 Hour Work Week. And one of the things that he has in there that's a really interesting thing is he talks about the 80-20 principle. And at the end of the day, like 20% of the work is what really is important, and the rest of it is kind of fluff. And like, so if you have 10 employees, there are 2 of them that are doing most of the work. And everyone else is kind of, not that they're bad, but they're getting by. And like the thing is like in our own lives, we have things that are producing and things that are not. And sometimes those things that are not are still important. I still have to figure out, what I got to do there. Well, maybe that's the thing that you get help with.
That's the great thing about a personal assistant too. You talk about the Eisenhower matrix. Even for the stuff that's urgent and important, a great
Yeah.
assistant will do those things for you. And then
Yeah.
now that frees up your capacity to just double down and create more urgent and more important things. And a reason I think people don't find the assistant that they get that value from is because they think in terms of cost and not value. And they think, oh, I'm going to like get someone and pay them the least possible to do this task and make sure it's right at market rates or below it. And I'm going to get the value out of this. It's like, no, 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 no. If you pay way above market rates, you're going to get way above market results.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I wish more people would talk about that because we live in this world where everyone wants to make the highest amount of profit, but sometimes you need to pay for the better service. It's like if I could take an analogy from another world, like there's two pizza places in town. There's this pizza place, it's premium pizza. It tastes really good. Or there's that pizza place. And everyone knows, a slice there is cheap. But you go, you eat it, you don't feel that great after, and it's just, it doesn't give you the same experience. Whereas you go to that pizza place, man, it's a whole thing, and it's like we really forget sometimes. I mean, I tend to remember it with products I buy. If I bought a pair of shoes and they were a really good pair of shoes. They lasted me 3 years, man. Like 3 years those shoes lasted me. I bought another pair from another company that I was like, oh, I'll try this company out. 6 months later, they just were destroyed. And it's like, I think that, focusing on quality and to really be aware of, but it comes back to the whole idea of when you're building a business, when you're doing anything, really focusing on things that are going to provide value for you, really provide quality. Same thing for a team. I don't want to have the people advising me to be the cheapest people in town.
Right.
You want to have the people that are advising you to be the best people in town.
People get obsessed with return on investment and they don't look at absolute return on investment. They focus on the percentage, I should say. So you might pay more money for something, but if I pay more money and I have a lower return on investment percentage, but I have a higher absolute return on my money, which is more profit or whatever you want to talk about it, I'd take that all day. I'd rather pay $10 to get 20 than pay $5 to get 7 or 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I love that, man, because at the end of the day, you have to be smart, which comes into this one. I want to ask you this question: what's a common myth about wealth building that entrepreneurs fall for, and what's the real truth that you kind of try to focus on instead?
The most common myth I see is that people get obsessed with building a big pile of money and they don't actually think about how am I going to distribute this and turn this into an income stream that provides the freedom and the life that I'm trying to live. And that kind of goes back to the return on investment thing. People chase the highest returns, the best investments, which is important. Like, yes, we want to get the highest return we could. Yes, we want to make the best investments we could. But at the end of the day, like if I don't have a plan to actually distribute the wealth, we all forget that there's two parts. There's accumulation and distribution, and they're equally as important. If I'm going to go climb Mount Everest, which I don't think I'll ever do that, but never say never, you never know. But if I climb Mount Everest, I'm going to get to the top, I'll hit the summit. I still have to get down, and that's just as much of a feat as getting up there. So wealth building is the same way, and for some reason, people forget this part of it. Why do they forget it? In my opinion, well, the entire financial industry is geared around build up this investment account, make these investments, manage your investments, which is great because that people need to do that. But let's not lose sight of what the actual goal is, which is the freedom to live our life and live off the passive income our investments could create.
I love that. I think about that all the time. Like I met someone that came on my podcast, and they had said that they had met so many people that were so obsessed with building wealth, and then when they had to go and spend it, they were freaking out. They're like, I can't spend that. They're like, you really can afford it. Like you have so much saved up. They're like this one person, this case study this person was talking about. They had a client that was driving an old beat up car. And it was at the point where, this person's like, I always advise people to drive old cars. Like, that's not something that I'm telling them to go buy something new. But this person really needed to go buy a new car. It was like, go buy a cheap car, but like their car was done. And now it was at the point where to keep it going was going to cost more than it would to get a new car. And when they went and talked to their client, the client was like, I can't do that. I can't afford it. And they're like, no, you seriously can. You've got millions set aside. And they're like, I don't feel like it's the right time. And they're like, your car has been in the mechanic 5 times this week. Like I can promise you this is the time. And they finally were able to get the person to buy a new car. I mean, I don't know if they bought new, but they got a new for them vehicle. And what the person said is like the person that was the client was like, I was terrified of the change. And it wasn't about the car. It was just about this mental place that they got into. And so it was like, this person said, all my life, I've been focused on accumulating and getting stuff that I forget that there's a time to spend. There's a time to go out and enjoy that thing,
Yeah, there's a very good book by a friend of mine, Tom Wall. It's called Permission to Spend. And what he talks about in his book is So many people get in the mindset of hoarding wealth. I'm hoarding my money in my 401k, in my investment accounts, whatever it is. And now I get to this point where I'm going to spend, and I'm so scared to spend my money because what if the market crashes? What if a health event happens? What if I run out of money? And now I can't give myself the permission to actually spend the money I've worked so hard to accumulate. So in Tom's book, he gets to the punchline of like, and this is actually a philosophy we follow with clients as well, where we want to bucket our money to have different purposes for different things. You'll keep a large portion of it that is just going to be the long term growth, and then you'll have like if you think about buckets of water with like a little faucet on the end of them, and then they're pouring into each other. So if I have like one here, one here, one here, this is the growth up here. Then we have a medium one that might be 5 years of income that is more of fixed, safer money that if the market crashes, guess what? That can be a source of income. And then you have your last one, which is a year of your expenses or a year of your cash when you are in retirement, that it's your short-term liquidity needs at that point. So as you spend from your short-term money to your midterm money to your long-term money, the faucets turn on and they pour over into each other. But what this allows you to do is give yourself permission to spend because you know that your long-term wealth is protected with the growth bucket. Your medium term is there to replenish the short term, and the short term is giving you your life today.
That's awesome. And again, it's like, people don't necessarily. I'm going to start working with one of my most recent guests. He's a professor at a community college, and he's just an awesome guy. We're going to start a regular series on here called Money School, talking to young people about like stupid questions, because like I didn't grow up with any of this, man. Like I was the guy who one of the reasons I started this podcast was because I didn't have people that gave me this information, and no hating on my parents. They didn't have anyone who gave it to them, and one of the things that I'm thinking about is like that bucket idea. Dude, I've never even heard that before. That's brilliant, and it's like it's really brilliant. But we're not talking to we're not talking to young people about these things, which leads to my next question. Like, how do you think people can better start preparing for their future financially?
The biggest mistake that I see is like let's just talk, Sean, about someone who comes out of college or out of high school, they're working their first job. They don't build up a cash cushion and they go right for let me invest in stocks
Yeah,
and sexiest thing out there. And like while that sentiment is good and yes, invest young, invest early, build a cash cushion because when you put your head on the pillow at night, you're going to want to have that. And when you go to buy a house or you're now moving up in the world, like you're going to want to have that cash cushion. So many people they buy a car first, they shove so much money into the market first, they buy a house and they leave no money in savings. This sets you up for failure because now your entire financial foundation is built on a house of cards. So
yeah.
build the cash cushion. And then rather than going right for the car, right for the house, right for the investments, invest in yourself. Like what skills can you grow in your career that are going to make you better in what you do? So for example, when I was starting my career as a financial advisor, one of the first things I did, because when you get in as an advisor, typically you're trained on like how to manage investments and how to like sell different financial products, which is like where it starts. But I wanted to be an advisor. Like I wanted to know holistic, full financial strategy. So I hired a coach that this is what he taught financial professionals how to become that person, how to become what he calls a personal CFO. So I did that my first year in business. Then I hired someone to learn how to sell my service. Then I hired a communications coach so I could articulate better. And the list goes on. But the investment in yourself is the best one you're going to make. So build the cash cushion, invest in yourself. That will put you in a stronger position than any stock market investment or home you're going to buy when you get your first couple of paychecks.
I love that a lot. I think that we don't have enough people talking about investing in yourself, and it can look different in different ways, but like you really are right. And like we have kids coming out of college that college is not teaching people all the right skills, and I'm a professor in university and I complain about that all the time. My students are not exiting university prepared for the world. They're really not. And they get out there and they've got a couple skills, skill set, like they can hopefully communicate. Hopefully they learn to get things done on time. I'm not going to lie. A lot of my students do not get things done on time, and it's like, and I'm just telling them, I'm like, guys, that's a life skill that you got to have. If you're delivering a product late, no one's going to be forgiving about that in the workforce, and like you're not getting things done on time. They're going to be like, hey, there's the door, and it's not forgiving. But I think that, when you get people who can learn about kind of making themselves better. I'm a huge fan of doing all these different courses on Coursera. Like, I am doing all these different certificates. I'm older than the average college student, but I'm out there still trying to sit there and go, hey, what could this help me with? Because I do media, right? And then all of a sudden, I was realizing I was reading up on project management, a couple years ago. And I was like, dude, that's what I do. Like, a video producer is literally a project manager. And so I started studying all these project management classes, which helped me become a better video producer and help figure out how to make workflows better and make things go better, And at the end of the day, we all have a skill set that we have that is inherent, but then you really can be bettering yourself and putting yourself into a better financial position because, you know, go back to the grade school, you know, uh, courtyard where you get a couple kids, and there's that one kid, man, he could do everything, and everyone, he was the kid who was picked first every single time for the sports team. Oh, dude, yeah, that guy, he can throw, he can run, he can jump, and it might seem silly, but maybe his dad was setting him up and teaching him how to do those things, and it's like, if you can invest and sit there and go, all right, I want to get better at this or that. It puts you in such a better place, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, people are afraid to be a beginner. They're afraid to look stupid. They're
Yeah.
afraid to be vulnerable. And one of the best things I've done for myself is just say, I would rather look stupid than fail. I would rather look
Hell
stupid than
yeah.
not reach the goal I'm trying to get to it. And when you do invest in yourself, that I think that's the scary part. If and especially if you're investing money, I'm investing money to become a beginner and learn this skill and rip the band-aid off. And that's uncomfortable, right? But through discomfort, we get to the point that we want to be for who we want to become.
I love that. I had one of the best, worst, like, compliments I've had on this podcast was like, Sean, you asked the really stupid questions. I love it. I was like, damn, well, they're just the questions I have. So I don't know about that. But I guess my questions are stupid. But I feel like I'm like one of those people, because I think a lot of people, and again, coming back to, like, I've talked about this so much on my podcast. Like, you get people that are asking questions that, or we don't ask questions because we feel like it's stupid, and I think that, we have to get beyond the place of feeling embarrassed about talking about money and talking about the things we don't know. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't know what's the best investment portfolio or how to set things up, man, ask someone. But I think people are sitting there going, man, damn, I'm 35, I'm 45, I'm 25. I should know about this, whatever age you're at. People feel like maybe they should already have this information. But I mean, man, I don't even know. I haven't seen any school yet that I've been a part of that has really solid personal. Well, there is one or two schools I think that now that I've heard about, but they have like a personal finance, like, degree, and I was like, dude, that's rad. I wish that they had. I wish they told everyone to minor in that. Everyone had to go through those classes, but we're not teaching it. We're not teaching it in grade school. We're not teaching it in high school. We're not teaching it in college, and you know, it should be.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember earlier this week on Monday, I met with a couple. They're in their early 50s, looking to catch up on retirement. They have kids that are kind of getting out of the house now, so there's a lot more money to be saved. And through my questions to just learn about them before I could ever advise and like diagnose and direct, they made a comment over and over of, "Hey, I know I should know XYZ, but blank. Oh, I should know this, but," and every question I asked was like that. And I had to stop the husband at one point. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, look, you shouldn't know this. Like, he's a superintendent for a construction company. I'm like, you're in the construction industry. That's your thing. If you took
Yeah.
me out of the financial industry and put me in your thing, I would have no clue what I'm doing. I don't know where I'd start. So don't beat yourself up. I'm just here to understand, and I will show you the path and guide you and give you the education that's necessary for where you're at with the context of what you're trying to do.
I love that. Yeah, because you're right, man. It's like spheres. It's like you put one guy in a boxing ring. He doesn't know what he's doing, but you take him out fly fishing, and wow, man, he's a master at it. And you don't want to judge the fly fisherman by putting him in the boxing ring because it's a
Right.
whole different experience. Now, I love this, like, because one of the things for me that I'm starting to look more at is because everyone wants something different as well. And it's really different for each person, like their financial goals and all of that. But for a lot of people, when you ask them deep questions about what they really want, I tend to find people come back to one concept, like the idea of financial freedom. This ability to kind of say, you know what, I want to have enough that I can do this or not feel worried about that. How do you help people build financial freedom that isn't tied to working every day, that's tied to something bigger, man?
So there's three phases that I view things in, and then there's kind of three areas of the phases. So I hit on this a little earlier in our conversation, where we have accumulation, we have distribution, and we have legacy. Now, back to the goal of financial freedom. I like to define it as choice. One of my clients said this to me last year when she just started working with me, and she's like, she's in her mid 50s, and she's like, "Look, I love what I do." She's a leadership coach, and she's like, "I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I could do this till the day I die. Like, it is genuinely a joy for me, and I am not worried about stopping and doing traditional retirement at any point or another." And by the way, Sean, I think a lot of people have evolved kind of to that mindset of like finding something they love, that I don't need to retire, but I want choice. Like, if I have the
Yeah,
assets that could stop working for 6 months or a year or forever, like, I want to know. So, anyways, I think we start there. And then as we look to the phases of what do I need to accumulate? What do I need to distribute? And what considerations do I have into account for when I am gone one day? What happens to my stuff? This is what we need to take people through. And how we take them through it is first through protection. So, protection is going to be, what happens if I lose my ability to earn an income? Because during accumulation, there's three very big pressures on us: the pressure to earn an income, the pressure to save an income, and the pressure to invest it properly. So we start with protection to make sure that we guarantee, regardless of our ability to earn an income, we will reach our maximum financial potential. From protection, we go on to cash flow. So as this money is coming in, what are our expenses? How do we allocate the difference of that? So we go to there next, because if we have a clear picture on cash flow, now we can go to wealth building, where now we're saving money. Now we know what's here. Where should it go to build wealth? Is it our business? Is it real estate? Is it the stock market? Is it something else that might be a unique thing that comes into play? And what are the tax considerations around that? Taxes are the largest expense a lot of us will pay in our lifetime, especially in the US. So how do we minimize the impact taxes will have on our future wealth that we build? So high level, that's like the structure we're taking people through. And there's obviously like the micro details of it, but I call that like the macro.
that's awesome, man. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what advice would you give yourself?
It's a great question. I think it's more about a life thing. And I can remember growing up, like, I was a big sports guy all the time.
I
Like, I
was going to
played,
ask you about that. You got a lot going on back there, man.
yeah, so played football, played basketball growing up, even baseball for a little while. Like, I did all the sports, and football, I ended up playing in college as well. And I was always very serious towards it. I took it serious as if I was going to the NFL. And I'm 5'11". I was a 220-pound linebacker. Like, I wasn't going to the NFL, but I love football. I was a good player, and I love what it did for me. And I was always very serious. And when you're a kid and when you're serious about something, it's there's often the people around you, or the other kids that you're playing with, of like, oh, like, you're a try hard, you're taking this way too serious. And that used to really get me down. And then I realized when I got to college, that still stuck. And then you realize you get into your career and you're like, this is my career now. I'm like, I'm providing a living. there's people around you in your career saying like things to you about being serious. And getting directly to the question, the advice I would give myself is do not let others projecting their insecurities onto you impact the passion that you have for something. Because when I was a kid, I would let that impact me and think, well, should I put this much effort into like being a football player? And should I really care about this that much? And now in my career, that's what I think sets me apart. That's what has helped me achieve anything that I have. That I don't care to put as much passion and as much hard work into something that means a lot to me.
I love that. And it does apply to personal finance as well in a way, because, one of the things I've had one guest come on and they were talking about things that were important and the personal nature of personal finance, and they had one guest that their thing was that they wanted to, give back a bunch of money to different schools in the area. And that was their thing. And at the end of the day, the person said, "All right, I was going to figure out a way to help them make that happen. How can we give and share some of the wealth that they earned?" And there are other people that want different things, and it's like one of the challenges that I think we have, and I'm not going to hate on social media, but I think because of social media, we are getting this distorted view of what it means to have wealth, this distorted view of what it means to be successful. Successful, it means, I've got my bling, I've got this and that. But at the end of the day, man, some of the richest people I know, you wouldn't know they're rich. And I'm not saying that that's the way you have to do it. I'm just saying it doesn't look the same for everyone. And I think that you have to get to the point of realizing, certainly there's certain principles you got to follow. If you want to build wealth, there's certain things that you probably need to spend less than you make. It's probably a good starting point. You got the other things that you have to do. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really unique for you, which is, again, where having a team with you can help you get to those goals. But if you're trying to do it alone, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance for sure. And there's there's the push and pull of when you're younger, you're probably making the least amount of money you're going to make. So, how much of it do I really invest in my future because I know bigger income days will come? So, should I not sacrifice my quality of life so much and get experiences that could really be valuable to me now? But then there's the double edged sword of it of like, I spend the money when I'm young, I get all of the experiences, and then I never catch myself up. I never make it a priority when my income increases to increase my savings. And like it's just one example, but there's so much nuance to personal finance that even back to the point of it being taught more in schools, but not quite as much in schools and college and whatnot. I think even still, it's very hard to take personal finance itself as a topic we learn in school and then put it to application in real life. Because for myself as an advisor, I can tell you the like most of the expertise, for lack of a better word, that I've gotten is just through the reps of seeing the way people think about money and the way they operate with money, the behavioral side of it, and letting that inform a lot of the decisions and recommendations I make. Because there's a lot of times, Sean, I make recommendations that on paper are suboptimal, but the way things happen behaviorally, I believe they're going to be optimal for the client at the end of the day.
I love that. Now, if you could teach every person that you interact with one money habit that builds real wealth, what would it be?
It's how to manage cash flow. So something that people do is I think most people, because this was me before I was exposed to this, a mentor of mine who's super successful showed me this. And what people will do is they get paid income. Where does it go first? Our checking account. Now, before it got sent to our checking account, taxes got taken out, our deductions for our benefits got taken out. Now it's finally here. And even if you're a business owner, I know it doesn't happen exactly that way, but for all intensive purposes, like we put money aside for taxes, we pay our health insurance, etc. Now it's in a checking account. I pay my mortgage, I pay my rent, I pay my bills, whatever they are. Then I pay for gas and groceries and the variable stuff. And now I pay for my lifestyle. Now there's a dollar amount that's left in my checking. Let's just call it $1,000 for example's sake of an easy number. So someone is $1,000. Well, maybe they say, I'm going to save 500 because I need to leave a buffer in case something comes up this month. Nothing comes up. Now it's the end of the month. Oh, I got paid again and there's extra money. Well, I'm going to spend that on something because if money's in a checking account, we spend it. So, what am I getting to with this? With the way that people manage money traditionally, which is what I just described, they're defaulted to spend. They're defaulted to spend because a checking account is a spending environment. So if money lives in a spending environment, I have to make an action to move it into a wealth building environment, whether that's savings, investments, whatever account that might be. There's friction for me to go from making money to building wealth. The way that we change it with our clients and the way that I suggest people do it is have it we call it a reservoir account, and you could set this structure up for yourself any which way, but have a savings account or a reservoir that is separate of the bank that your checking account is at. Get
I love
paid,
that.
get paid to that place first. Identify a spending baseline, which is my fixed bills, my variable bills, and then what I want to give myself as a discretionary. I mean, it's an allowance at the end of the day, our discretionary at that point. Identify this number. So maybe it's $7,000. So now every month, I'm going to send $7,000 from my savings reservoir to my checking account, which is my spending account. And that goes once a month. And that's what I spend. So now if I make more money, it's automatically saved in the savings reservoir. And then I can allocate that to investments or to other things. But the moral of the story is whatever the excess dollars are, they're automatically saved. And for me to spend more money, I have to do one of two things. I have to increase my set transfer amount. So I'm choosing to increase my lifestyle, which is fine because I made that choice. Or I have to choose to transfer money manually. And if I do that, that's fine because I manually chose to increase my lifestyle. Whereas if I'm on the prior or the former way, I'm naturally increasing my lifestyle and I have to choose to increase my wealth.